please join me in welcome Dr. Ed Amoroso.
In the 1980s, I worked for this guy who sort of helped build Unix. I worked in Bell Labs, and there were these guys who would wander around. They had beards, they wore Birkenstocks, they would walk into walls. It was like what Steven Spielberg would send if you know, said, put some people in a movie who looked like the type of people who would invent Unix and computers. These are the people. And he had a son. It's like Dan Solero from a group at AT&T. His son's here. So this guy had a son. His name was Bob Morris. And his son used to work summers in our lab. And in 1988, he wrote a program that did the following. By the way, I'm going to teach you all right now how to create malware. There's 3 lines. And even if you don't know anything about computer science, you can go home and you can tell your family that you learned how to write malware from me. Are you ready? So, the first thing you do is you write a little program that has 3 lines in it, and the first line just finds some computer on the network. You think you can do that? Like, you could find an IP address, 1.2.3.4, or just whatever. You just need to be able to find a computer. Let's say your program is called Worm. The first line is find a computer. The second line copies your worm program to that computer you found. And then the third line runs it on that computer. So what's going to happen on that computer? You send a program that has a first line that finds a computer, copies itself, and then what does the third line do? Runs it on that computer, so what it's going to do? You get the point? So this kid who worked in our lab, whose dad was my boss, who helped develop Unix, writes this program that brings the entire internet down in 1988, whole internet down. Didn't matter as much then, but it was a big deal. Like this kid, he was at Cornell University, Bob Marsh, he's an MIT professor now. The reason I bring it up is because somehow, it was called the Worm program, it didn't get into AT&T. And I was writing textbooks on computer security, and I didn't know why it didn't get in. Like, it seemed like it should have. It got in everywhere. Didn't get into AT&T. So I go hunting around, and I find these 2 guys who look even more like Steven Spielberg sent them. It's like Steve Bellevin teaches at Columbia, Bill Cheswick. These are guys who are, they're really, really weird people. But I love them. Lifelong friends, but they're weird. And I go and I say, what are you doing? How did you make us not get this worm? And they showed me something they basically invented called a firewall. That ushered in 10 years of good enterprise computing and about 10 or 15 years of terrible enterprise computing. Here's what I mean. All of you, if you have a job today, you work at a company that has a firewall. And you presume that when stuff is inside the firewall, we're good, we're home, we're exit's fine. And you're here with all my friends at work, everything's good. As long as you lock that firewall door, all the bad guys are out there, and all of us nice people are in here. And maybe you could make that case in 1987. Probably couldn't, sort of. By the way, the reason you could do that is because you just had a little trickle connection to the internet. Most of the computing you were doing wasn't even internet processing anyway. So the firewall worked great, but now it's all internet. So we have that model. Why is that a terrible model? Can you think of any reasons why? Like, all of you, if you deal with auditors, you draw this thing on the first page of your audit that looks like a circle. It's very profound because you draw an unbroken circle and you show it to the auditor and you say, that's my architecture. And the auditor goes, what do you mean? And you go, well, look, inside the circle, that's all our good stuff. The circle is our firewall, and outside that, there's all, foreigners and terrorists and, murderers and people, our competitors and graduate students, they're all out there. And we have a circle. So if I drop stuff in the circle, we're good. We just have to make sure we don't ever let anything come in the circle. And anybody who thinks for 3 seconds about that would say, you'd raise your hand and say, well, hold on, I have a question. When I send you email, it gets to you, right? And you go, yeah. So you take your eraser, and you take that circle, and you go, erase just a little piece in the circle. And you go, all right, I'll give you that. So email comes in. I'll watch that. Well, that can't seem that tough, right? You go, no. So now it's a circle with a little break in it. And another hand goes up. You go, what? You go, well, don't we have a website? And you go, yeah, we do. You go, well, break it out. You go, all right, take eraser out, break another little piece of the circle. You go, all right, I got 2 places. Another hand goes up. I work from home on weekends. In fact, now, I work from home most of the time. In fact, now, all of us work from the airport. We're constantly coming into VPN. And you go, all right. And you start to erase a little piece, but then everybody weighs you down and goes, you better make that a big piece. It's a whole company. So you erase a big chunk of the circle. Then another hand goes up. How about our vendors? Tier 3, Tier 4. When we have a problem, they come right in. And how about every one of our vendors? We have a portal. Before you know it, you have this little choppy circle with cuts and more open than broken. And when people say, why does data get stolen from a company? Why does Target lose their data on their credit card machines because a vendor came in through a portal? It's because of that. They come in through the portal, and Target and Home Depot and Office of Personnel Management and Sony and on and on. They have that stupid architecture where once you get in, they trust everything. It's a terrible architecture. So what do? Instead of protecting the enclosure, you protect the data. The companies protect the wrong thing. I'll give you an example. When I was a little kid, I grew up on the Jersey Shore. There was a gun shop, and in front of it was a soda machine, and if you share a generation of me, and some of you look like you do, remember when a soda machine had a long vertical glass door that you would open? And you could get your hand on the tip of the bottles, but you couldn't pull it out. You had to put your quarter in, and then you pull, the metal thing would open, you pull the bottle out. Do you guys remember? It's called a vintage vendo. Well, I figured out, and this is sort of like an enterprise network that's protecting the wrong thing. The soda machine was protecting the wrong thing because what you could do is open the glass door, take a bottle opener, pop the top off, put a straw in, and drink all the soda without the bottle. But do you see the point? Like if you protect the thing around something and forget to protect what it is that's valuable, you did it wrong. So the real approach is that you can't rely on the fact that you live in a guarded community to protect the wallet on the kitchen counter. You put the wallet on the kitchen counter, you got to protect it. And that's what companies have to do now. I think that's why the concept of protecting data is a valuable one. So I think that you've got the concept right. That's rare. I look at 2,000 companies a year, and I work with about 40 of them that I think are kind of doing the right thing. I'm very selective. I don't like to say no to way more than I say yes to. So I wish you well as you build out the concept, as you build out your customer base, because it's good for the industry. I know you guys are business people. You're thinking you want business success, but I'm saying that you have a tailwind behind you and that it is really good for the industry. I would be very conflicted here, dragging the team up. Amir, you're such nice people. If you were doing something that was bad for the industry but was going to sell a lot, I probably wouldn't be standing here. But the fact that I think it is the right concept should make you feel good that you're backing a horse that's at least headed in the right direction. If you have a question, I'll be here all night. Nice to see you.